This is Tyrese Haliburton, and you're listening to Setting the Pace.
All right, everybody, joining us now, making his Setting the Pace debut. He is the assistant general manager for the Indiana Pacers. It is Ted Wu. Ted, thanks so much for joining us. How are you doing today?
Hey guys, thanks for having me. First time, listened to you guys a lot beforehand, but definitely glad to be a guest on the show and happy to kick this off.
Okay, so since you threw it out there, you said you've been listening to us for a while. I'm just curious, has there been anything that we've said that's kind of been like, whoa, that was really off the wall that you can remember specifically, whether it was me probably or Facci?
No, you guys keep it pretty cool. I just like hearing a lot about your takes. It definitely brings a lot of ideas. Just generates thought and conversation. And you guys are such big Pacers fans and supportive of the team over the past 5 years since I've been with the team. So definitely want to keep picking up that fan base and hearing more of what our fans think about our team and how we can improve it and ultimately be the best that we can be as a front office.
Love that. We really appreciate the kind words, and it's great to hear that the Pacers front office is tapped in to the fan base, because I think it's not like that in every other area. There's some teams that do not engage with their fan base. The Indiana Pacers are definitely not one of those. But I think current day right now, Indiana's fighting for home court. I think we're starting to hear it a little bit more in some of these post game interviews, like from Tyrese, talking about the importance of fighting for that fourth seed. Last year in the playoffs, we saw Indiana drop game one in all three series. How important is it to this unit to be able to lock down home court in the first round?
Yeah, if you look at our home record this year, we're probably one of the top three in the league in terms of home record. I think we're 25-10, maybe 26-10 at this point. If you've ever even stepped foot at Gamebridge, you understand what that atmosphere is like and how much our players thrive with that atmosphere and how much they enjoy having the fan base back them up. We're confident going into any game at home, and if we're able to do that in the playoffs, I think we can really make some noise there. So, these next 6 games, there's still a battle to kind of hold that off and get there. But once we do, or hopefully we secure that, anything can happen at the playoffs. So, maybe as long as Facci doesn't make it to a game at Gamebridge, then we'll even better. The further we get away from that could help. But it's, I think just last year's playoffs and then trying to continue that on to this year and just having that, atmosphere behind the team would mean a lot to the fan base and the team.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, I think this season, if you look at the standings, it feels pretty adamant like Indiana will probably play Detroit or Milwaukee in a playoff series. Obviously, last year you guys played Milwaukee, but they're a totally different version of themselves this year. And then Detroit, they're kind of like this up and coming team that's, brought a lot of fight to the table. There's been some back and forth between both of the franchises here. You going back and forth with talking and getting into little altercations. But, when you look at both of these teams, what makes you, I guess you should say, how do you kind of view both these teams if you were to face one of them in a playoff series?
Yeah, I think a lot of it will first depends on playing our style. So, I think it's a lot more focused internally than externally. Whatever, kind of plays out with the standings will play out. Those are things that we personally can't control from the team side. But, we believe that our depth in our rotation and the style of play that we have can compete with anybody in the East or in the league. You've seen that throughout this season. So I think first and foremost, it's making sure that we can continue to play our style and then, picking it up on the defensive end. Detroit and Milwaukee are both, really, good teams that are, in different kind of trajectories in terms of just where their team building roads are leading. But, they will both be a competitive series if we have to play one of them. They have all-stars on their team. They have, really strong pieces in their rotations, and kind of whoever comes out. I don't want to mess with the basketball gods kind of thing and just talk one up over the other. So I want to give both of those teams their respect and their dues. And we've beat both of those teams this year, and we've lost to both of those teams this year. So, continue to focus on our game plan and our our style, and I think we can again compete there and get there.
We're talking about being able to compete with some of the best teams in the league. I think that when Indiana has Tyrese Haliburton playing to his full potential, they could beat anybody at any given time. The beginning of the season, it's a little bit tough to watch at times, but I think what was tougher was seeing Tyrese kind of without some of his usual joy. It was just he was not playing up to his full potential. But since 2025 has struck, this man is playing on another world level. I mean, he's truly is now getting into that conversation of potentially an all-NBA player after, missing out on this year's All-Star game. What does it mean to like this group of players when Tyrese is playing at this type of level?
Yeah, I mean, you guys have all seen it. Tyrese is the engine that makes a lot of the team go, right? So, if he's able to play at a high caliber level, we're confident that the rest of the team can follow suit and get there as well. He's, he plays the right way. He makes plays for others. He can get a bucket when we need him to get a bucket. The amount of clutch plays he's had over this past season has been unbelievable to kind of, either take the lead or keep us in the games. And he's the point guard of the team. He said it the other day, he feels like the mother of the team in a way to make sure that he feeds everybody else and everybody else is happy and he can keep the house happy in that way. And a lot of that comes with it. So if the, just using his analogy, if the mother's happy in the household, then a lot of the rest of the team will be there as well. So, it's extremely encouraging to continue to see him grow and develop and get, back to his former self. I know the beginning of the year was a little tough and there's a lot of, people speculating and why it kind of took that time to get back. But, he works really, really hard at his craft. He's gotten, through some of these minor nagging injuries, and a healthy Tyrese going into the playoffs is something a lot of teams across the league should fear. And, we're excited to have that, and, are confident in his ability to keep this team going.
About 15 months ago, you guys made a pretty significant trade in acquiring Pascal Siakam, and since then, you guys made it to the Eastern Conference Finals. He was named an All-Star this year, and he's been playing, really good basketball. I would say maybe, since the All-Star break, he has, maybe in my eyes, looked a little bit tired. I'm curious how you've seen Pascal, elevate as a player and a leader on this team, and then do you think that there's a little bit of fatigue with just the amount of minutes he's played this season?
Yeah, I think Pascal's season as a whole has been one of consistency, and he always continues to give his effort, and what you're going to get each and every single day. Yes, there's a little bit of, this is a long season. He's played in all but one at this point, I believe. But I think he has continued to show up each and every day, and has brought it. And through all the ups and downs of the season, going, through in the beginning, those first 25 and past All-Star into where we are now, you step out on the court and you're just never worried about a player like Pascal. He is going to be able to contribute with, the rest of our team and be able to bring it on both ends of the court. And he's one of those where, you think back on that trade and how good he was with Toronto and how much we wanted to acquire him at the time. But even, as excited as we were to acquire him at the time, I think he still exceeded those expectations over, his year and a half with us. And his leadership also off the court has been something that has been kind of talked about, over the last year and a half. And it's true. And I think a lot of the guys respect him, and he's brought that playoff experience to the team. And, last year, and now all of our guys have that experience because of what Pascal was able to bring last year. And now we can all continue onto it this season. So we're excited for what he's done. You talk about Tyrese kind of having an all NBA year this second half. I think both guys have a case for all NBA. Honestly, if you think about Pascal's just consistency across the entire season, and then Tyrese's second half of the year, they just, have shown up for a team that has, over the last, again, from December, has been one of the top 4 or 5 records across the league. So, we'll kind of let how the voting plays out, but both of those guys are just, are star players, and they are important for what we're building here, and need them to continue to be that part for the team.
Yeah, I think Siakam's been like that, also that veteran presence, with this team. And I think someone he's kind of been a little bit of a mentor for, I would say, was Jarus Walker. And Jarus right now, over the last couple of weeks, maybe 4 or 5 games, is playing some of his most consistent basketball. Double-digit scoring in the last 4 games, shooting about 60% from 3 over the last 5 games. What have you enjoyed seeing when Jarus has been kind of put back into the rotation and playing consistently about 20 minutes per night over that stretch?
I mean, how awesome is it to see Jarus kind of doing the things that he's doing on the court right now? Yesterday, he had 2 step-back threes. The other nights he's had 4 or 5 deflections. He's bringing it on both sides. And the thing that's most encouraging is that he has been, ready and able to seize the opportunity when kind of given it again, right? So you think back to that Laker game where he was not playing much in the rotation, and then the coaching staff puts him in for however many minutes during that game, and he makes a huge difference to kind of get us back into that one. And then from there, he just seized it and has continued to show up each and every game. And for a 21-year-old to have that type of mindset and maturity to be ready and able to step in and contribute again, goes a long way. It could be the Pascal mentorship to make sure, and the rest of the locker room to pick him up and be able to do it. But it's also up to the individual himself to be able to recognize that and, again, play the way that he's been playing. So he's been, extremely encouraging to see. It's just been extremely encouraging to see that type of growth. He's still 21 again. It's one of those things where he'll make mistakes and he has to fight through them, and he has to gain the trust of both the coaching staff and his teammates. But I think over these last, 2-3 weeks, he's starting to do that more and more. And, we drafted him so high for a reason, because we believed in his skill set and what he can bring to this team. And I think, it's exciting to see that continue to take off and see where that leads us. Super, super exciting there.
And just to kind of piggyback off this Jarus conversation, I know just a couple of weeks ago, it was Lloyd Pierce and Rick Carlisle that discussed asking Jarus if he wanted to play in a G League game. And so he goes from, playing in the G League, not really being in the rotation, to now getting a more consistent role and really just kind of proving why he belongs out there. And so when you kind of look at a young player that you said, just 21 years old, that growth and that level of maturity that he has to have to kind of keep his mindset right, to not get down on himself. I mean, have you seen some of those growing pains that he's gone through, and how do you think he's handled it in terms of just the maturity level he's come to approach this situation with, and what eventually, I guess I should say, led the coaching staff to finally give him a little bit of trust here to put him into the rotation?
Yeah, I think I'm just trying to think back over the last couple months. We've had a lot of conversations with his agents, Jarus himself. Just continue to stay ready, be ready, and be prepared, and never get discouraged with what's happening in front of you. And I know I've heard Chad talk about this a lot. Every player's career trajectory is different. There's nobody in this league that's going to go through the same type of path to get to where they ultimately end up. And Jarus is a prime example of that. So to just continue to encourage him and continue to support him and have the right system in place for him to, hone his skills and have the opportunity to play for the Mad Ants like we did the other day. And, continue to work with him individually and just be ready for the opportunities that come. It goes a long way to just show how far he's grown. And, I say this a lot to, when I think about Jarus, this is technically his rookie year in terms of how much he's actually playing. So, if you take that lens of, how, what he's doing, you just see a lot of, potential there. And, it's just exciting to kind of see where else this can lead down the line. Especially for just the modern day, the skill set that he brings to the game. He just does so much, on both sides. I mean, the shooting element, component of his game has just, you feel confident whenever he lets it go. Whether it's a set shot or a step back, like he's been doing. And then the vision, the passing, his strength, like he's taking care of the ball a lot more. And then defensively, it's you can definitely see flashes there as well. So you put all of that together, and he has all the makings of the top 7, top 8 pick that we drafted him on. So I think it's a testament to himself, our coaching staff, seeing him work the way that he's worked to then give him all the chances that he's given. If he wasn't doing the work outside of just the game time, then it's a lot harder for the coaching staff to trust in him. But he has been doing it, and whether it's a deep rotation, an injury to one of the players that kind of gave him the chance, or just situationally, the fact that he was prepared and putting in the work led to the point that allowed him to get back to where he is now. And just continue to hold on to it and seize the opportunities when it's there is where we're at.
Another lottery pick that we're very excited about, Bennedict Mathurin, in specific because the fact that he was not available in last year's playoffs. Mathurin nursing a calf injury, but not expected to be out much longer. What are you in the front office and really this team most excited about to have Bennedict Mathurin in this upcoming playoffs, knowing that this is a guy that has a very special skill set that not a lot of other players possess, where he is able to, set up his own shot, really be able to get to the rim and attack it, get to the free throw line at a rate that many other players can't.
Yeah. I mean, the first word that comes out of everybody's mouth when you talk about Bennedict is that competitiveness that he brings, that competitive fire, and, the ability to get a bucket when you really need him to get a bucket. And he's shown that, this past week with the injury has kind of had him taking a step back, but overall he's one that, you feel confident with him in a playoff game. And that's something that we did lack last year and all last season during that playoff run. We're saying how much further could we have gotten if Bennedict was a part of the team. And you think about that over and over again, and we're excited to see what that can bring this year. He's you don't worry about his capability in the moment. When there's a high pressure moment, you are not worried about what Ben was thinking about. You feel confident that if the ball is in his hand to help you, kind of either get to the paint or make the right play, and to just have that competitive fire to be locked in at those high pressure moments. So that's exciting to see, and that's what the playoffs will bring. And, that's going to be a whole different playing field for him. And I know Ben's excited for that. And we're excited to see that as well. And, to see how he can take advantage of that opportunity. He's going to be a big part of that rotation.
Yeah, I'm definitely expecting Ben to kind of bring his A game for the playoffs. That would be, that's probably the easiest bet you can put out there, just because of how much he loves to compete. Now, it's not really fair to compare, the previous year to this year, because every season's different. But do you feel like there's been maybe a drop off in terms of production from your second unit? And if you have, what do you think that might be?
Yeah, I feel like that's a little bit of the narrative lately. I think, I haven't looked at the numbers too much lately. There may be something there, but overall, I think our bench unit is still considerably strong. And, I think we're excited to see, I think even lately, like the last few games, they've continued to build off of it. So there might have been a little bit of a, what you might call a slump or so, over the last couple weeks or so. But, again, you're feeling confident when you see your bench unit go in. And it's one of those where, maybe the starters are kind of continue to play at such a high level. And if they can't pick up the exact same pace that the bench brought last year, like you said, it's hard to compare. And a lot of people are comparing how good the bench was last season. And maybe it's a little bit of a dip. But, when the bench comes in, I personally feel very confident still, whether it's TJ, Obi, Jarus now, they're all coming in, Thomas Bryant as the backup five. Like, they bring this spark, this energy to the building. They make the hustle plays, they make the right plays. And it's still a lot of tinkering with the rotation and how to balance the units. You're probably not seeing as many kind of straight swaps, and you're kind of trying to figure out which starters play well with which of the bench rotational guys. And that's, something that the coaches are still figuring out, but it's, that's what a long season is meant for. And, getting closer to the playoffs, that's going to change again because it's going to be so matchup dependent and how things are going. But, we're confident in our bench. We know that we have talent on the bench, and, we understand that the depth and how deep and our, full rotation it's a superpower of our team. And it's one of those things that, as we built the team, we understood that continuity of having the same, 10, 11 guys that we had last year to build off of our system and our pace is something that we wanted to put forth again this season and see how it all come together. And, I don't want to so focus on the ups and downs of the dip of the rotation, because I still truly believe that all of it together is what makes this team go. And for us to make a successful playoff run, we're going to need each and every one of those guys to step up. So I'm confident in it. I think our coaches are confident in that, and we'll kind of see what the playoffs bring.
Yeah, definitely agree. The strength has always been in the numbers, and especially this bench unit. I mean, look, I know everybody went off against Washington, but it was 83 bench points. I mean, that is just unheard of, and no other team in the NBA can do that. But when you're not making maybe big swings for trades, one of the big moves was the shift in Aaron Nesmith coming off the bench and going into the starting lineup, and Bennedict Mathurin coming out of the starting lineup and going to the bench. When we had Chad on it was like it maybe just happened, maybe 2 games. Now we've seen a much larger sample size. And Ted, we could say it's worked. The Pacers starting 5 looks great. The team's playing awesome. And Aaron Nesmith has been unlocked. I've seen post All-Star break, Nesmith and Tyrese Haliburton are actually one of, if not the best duo in the NBA from a net rating standpoint. What have you liked about Aaron Nesmith in the starting lineup since that move's been made?
His clutch free throws is another thing that I think I really like about Aaron. Aaron is one of those players that, similar to what I said about Pascal, he is so consistent in just his style of play. He's going to be, one of always on the floor, getting the loose ball. He'll always run hard in fast break or transition. But he'll make the right read. He'll hit open shots. He'll lock down the players that we need him to lock down. Like, he's the epitome of what a Pacer player is in so many ways. And he's elevated his game too. He's really been able to take that next step offensively, kind of showing his bag in a way. And I think he's feeling more and more confident. And I think it took a little bit of time because he missed so many games earlier in the year. But as he continues to grow, like get stronger and feel more confident and all of that, I think he's almost a 50, 40, 90 guy, in terms of just his efficiency. So he fits in like a glove, honestly. And that switch to the starting unit has been, really beneficial for everybody. But it's also, not to, mention the Bennedict piece, but there's really, in a way that we have 6 starters in a way, right? Like, it's also about how you finish the game in some ways. And Ben has finished the games, and, being able to have the ability to pick and choose and find what the best matchup is for us as a team, again, goes back to the strength in numbers that you were just talking about. So, Aaron has contributed, immensely to the success of this team, and, excited to kind of see where that leads us to.
I would agree 100% about the consistency with him too. And I know that Rick Carlisle called Andrew Nembhard a no maintenance kind of guy, or a very low maintenance kind of guy. I feel like Aaron Nesmith's kind of the same way. He just wants to go out there, do his job, and he embraces everything that he's asked to do. And I think he's really developed. And I thought it was a great point by Coach to talk about how he's still so young and he's still developing. And I think people forget that he is still, not even reached his prime yet. But Another player that I think has played much, much better since the All-Star break, and we've seen him play a little bit of small ball 5, is Obi Toppin. When it comes to Obi, this is a guy that just absolutely loves this organization, and the way that he connects with fans is something I've noticed, just being around pregame and stuff. It's a special thing that he has here with the fan base and stuff like that. But in terms of his on-court play, what have you seen from him since the All-Star break, and what do you like about him in that, small ball 5 unit?
Yeah, I think that's worked very well. We tried that last year a bunch in the playoffs, and it's continued to work. I think if we can play Minnesota every game for Obi, I think that'd be pretty nice. That first Minnesota game, as a father, like I audibly jumped, when I wasn't here, and almost woke up the kids and cheered when that overtime game, unbelievable. But he's one that you feel extremely confident every single time he shoots now. That's been the case for a while, but right now he's really feeling it. And he, if you talk about style of the Pacers and the ability to get up and down and his nonstop energy there, he brings that. And you think about some of these dunks that he puts together, they are highlight reels, and they really pick up the team and demoralize the other team. He really is able to do that. And now, like, you think about that Sacramento game, he's able to D up on Domas, and he's able to, put a body on some of these guys, and he's trying a lot harder on the defensive end, which is, what we need him to do, and, for him to take the next step. So it's really all kind of coming together there. And, you talk about the bench again, he is, first guy up, and, will kind of somebody that you are extremely reliant on, and he can, he unlocks so much of what we're able to do. He's also able to spell kind of Pascal whenever Pascal needs a breather, in a way to kind of just keep that whole rotation going. So it's exciting to see. And, he's such a genuine person. The fans love, that side of him. We love that side of him from a front office. It's kind of really been a perfect marriage there.
Yeah, Ted, there's a little bit of a common theme from the last few players that we mentioned, and that's Indiana traded for them. And it's kind of a bit of a truthful joke around the fan base. This Indiana Pacers front office does not take L's in trades. You guys have come out on top on quite a few trades, whether it's Tyrese Siakam, Nesmith, Obi, most recently Thomas Bryant. Are there still teams left in the league that's willing to trade with us? Or, I don't want to stop trading because it's working, but what is the secret and what goes into the due diligence you guys do to pull off these deals?
Yeah, I think it's a lot of, behind the scenes work for us. Not to spill too many of the trade secrets there, but, a lot goes into it from our scouting department. A lot of credit to, Ryan Carr and Mance Catlin there, kind of identifying the types of players that would really fit us. In our analytics department, headed by Spencer Anderson, there's just constant conversation and constant collaboration with us in the front office, with the support staff and everybody else that goes into it. So it's a lot of dialogue to identify, who we, want to, think will fit the Pacers culture and fit our style. And then the conversations with the coaching staff too, to make sure that front office and coaching staff are on the same page. It's a lot of just, teamwork, at the end of the day. And once you do all of that work, then it just leads to the conversations with, the 29 teams across the league. And it takes two to tango, and, sometimes it doesn't work out, but sometimes it does. And when it does, it's making sure that, internally we're all on the same page, and that we believe that these moves make the most sense for us. And if the other team agrees with that, then we're ready to go. But if they don't, then it's just move on and find the next thing to do, because, that's the train's always going to be moving there. And it's just, I don't think there's any one person, it's a lot of no ego, in our group. And there's a lot of, just agree, disagree. But at the end of the day, we really unite, to kind of come together on these decisions. It's really, really worked well for us with that type of collaboration, over these past few years with trades in that regard.
Well, we'll make sure that none of these secrets get out to any of the other 29 GMs in the league, so we'll keep this on wraps. But I would be remiss if I didn't ask this question for all of our Australian listeners. Johnny Furphy, obviously haven't seen a lot of him on the court this year, but he's been playing with the Mad Ants, and the Mad Ants are in the playoffs right now. What have you liked about the development of Johnny Furphy so far this season?
Yeah, tune in 8 o'clock tonight for the Mad Ants versus Osceola for the second round of the G League playoffs. So that's going to be an exciting one, and you'll get a glimpse at Johnny again, and he's played great for the Mad Ants the last few games. But overall, Johnny, I think this past year he's gotten, I just looked at it. He's still 19 years old. I mean, it's for him to, kind of gotten a base around his body and his strength and his skill development for what he's done this year. It's been extremely exciting to see for such a young kid coming out of, Kansas and then kind of just getting into the draft. I don't know if you talk about career trajectories. He's one that, even if you asked him, he might not have thought that he'd be where he is right now just because, he started playing basketball not many years, just so recently. But he's got great size. He's continually getting stronger if you just look at him from the beginning of the year to now. He's one of those players that makes quick decisions. He moves the ball and he continues to hustle and play hard. All of that is what, some of those things that really fit what we do as a team. And then the offense is coming along. You're starting to see that in the Mad Ants, with him playing in the Mad Ants. And defensively, for a 19-year-old, it's hard for people to get by him. Like, that's one of those things that is extremely surprising when you just watch him on the defensive end for somebody who, just is in the first year of the NBA. He can really hold his own, and that's it's exciting to see some of those developments in his where he's coming from, and I think he can get to a point where he can be a part of this Pacers future.
Yeah, Ted, you have a background salary cap management, which means that you're way better with numbers than I am. I struggle adding up box score, bench scoring, things like that. But, we don't have to get into any specifics. Myles Turner, obviously, Indiana is not able to negotiate with him during the year. He's going to be heading towards a free agency. Just talk to us about how much Turner means to this Pacers team. He's obviously the longest tenured Pacer, but just feels like such a great fit with this group.
Yeah. I mean, if you think about Pacers basketball and you think about the last 10 years with them, like, Myles Turner is the face that comes up. He does so much for the community. He does so much for his teammates. He is an Indiana guy, and he's gonna be remembered fondly for all the things that he's done when his career is over. He's, like you said, we cannot currently talk about kind of any types of numbers there, but he is such a focal point for us as a team. You think about the fit with Tyrese and Pascal and what type of center you want to be playing with them. Myles unlocks so much there. And, his rim deterrence and his ability to continue to defend is, still something that, is other teams have to focus on too. So, that component of everything, we value Myles immensely, on all of that. Free agency is a whole different animal in terms of what's about to come. But there's no doubt that, our team, believes in Myles. Our coaching staff, really values that, his skills and him as a player. And, this community really rallies behind him. And we believe in that, and we, take that into consideration. And we hope that, we'll see what kind of comes, this summer, but he's definitely a priority there.
All right, I could talk with you a lot about a ton more about other stuff, but I just have to ask this question because one of our faithful listeners always throws in ideas about a no trade clause. So I'm just curious your thoughts on how a no trade clause, works in terms of if you were to put it into a contract, and how unlikely is it to see a no trade clause in the future of deal kind of.
So there are certain rules around what type of contracts can contain a no trade clause. Myles is, that's going to be some sort of negotiating term, this summer. But just taking a league view of what a no trade clause will do, it's something that for a team to put one into a contract, you have to be prepared for all the implications of what that means down the line. And you're starting to see that with, another team out west. I don't want to start naming names, but I think it's pretty publicized, what's happened, in the desert there. And, if you're strategic and you're trying to figure out ways to negotiate a contract, I think there are probably other ways to kind of bridge the gap before going towards that route. Every negotiation is different, and every agent and player, values different types of things. So, put a no trade clause in the same, manner as some of these other things that you'll talk about in a negotiation. But what, for the most part, many players are precluded from even talking about a no trade clause. Myles is in the other bucket where you could actually do it. So, it's one of those things that we'll be, mindful of and, consider when the time comes.
Hey, I'm going to leave it to you guys, but a no trade clause shakes me to my core. All right. Given what's going on, out west in the desert, all the hints that you provided, where it's hot out, all of that stuff. But, I want to get your opinion on this. Last year, the Pacers went into the playoffs inexperienced in terms of going to the big dance. They haven't been battle tested. This team has been battle tested. The majority of this group that came back was in the Eastern Conference Finals. What type of shift in mentality have you seen from this group as they're heading into the 2025 playoffs compared to last year?
Yeah, I think it's one of those where once you get the taste of it, you just want more, right? So it's, I think last year everybody was like, okay, let's see what this is about, and kind of like, it's nice to be here. And now that you've gotten that, that first try at it, it's how do you really come out with, being the hunter, being the ones that really just takes it. And, I think that's the mentality that goes in with this team right now, that, everybody said last year's run was, a little fluky or circumstance, and, got the benefit of the doubt with injuries and all that. But I think this is a confident group, and they really want to just show the world that we're here and that we arrived, and that we don't want to put any doubt in anybody's mind anymore. So that's, that was a lot of the, thought behind bringing this group back. They had the taste, the continuity, and then, what can they do again with kind of the added reinforcements, but the main group still there and surrounding it, and kind of attacking this playoffs with that mentality.
All right, Ted, this is going to be my last question, then we're going to wrap it up here. So we do appreciate your time, but I just have to ask, because we're going into the playoff season. It's getting exciting there. Do you have any final message you want to give to the fans that are listening to this show about, what you're kind of hoping to see from them these next handful of games for the regular season, then going into the playoffs?
Yeah, just keep bringing that same attitude and keep bringing that support, behind this team. I think our guys really do thrive on that. And, when there's this positivity and encouragement and constant reinforcement of that and that belief, in this team, I think it really does go a long way. There's, everybody, there's always going to be skeptics out there. There's always going to be people, the national media, the national, all that stuff that's out there, and the disrespect is going to fuel some people. But at the end of the day, when you can come together and kind of bring that attitude of, positivity, and this is our team, and this is what you want to go into, like, that will, really feed us. And then, if we do get home court advantage, show up for the games and really, be playoff basketball is a whole different animal. It's so, last year was my first year in the playoffs with the Pacers, so being able to experience that, and it's just got so much to look forward to this next couple months, and we're really hoping for a long playoff run again, and we want to get there. So whatever support that your all the listeners out there can bring, we are ready for that.
Ted, I'm fired up. You're making me want to buy a ticket, but I know I'd curse the team if I did. So I'm going to sit this one out, but you heard it straight from Ted. We got to show up. We got to make home court feel like
everybody but you, Facci.
Everybody but me. But I'm going to do my part. I'm going to do my part. I'm just going to do it from home.
I lied, Ted. I have one more question. Do you know much about the pep in the step after a Pacers victory that Facci talks about?
I do. And today the pep in the step must have been nice, and
It
we'll keep
was.
it going.
It was, and I don't want it to end. It's getting me through the week, so we just got to keep the good times rolling, take down Utah, and if we can take down Denver, bring it to next week, that would be even better. But Ted, we really appreciate you coming on the show. It means a lot to us. Appreciate all the time that you broke us off with and your insight on this team. Man, it's an exciting time to be a Pacer fan.
Love it, guys. Thanks for all your support.
Absolutely, Ted. So thank you again so much for coming on. And Pacer Nation, make sure you guys do your best to get to the Fieldhouse for Friday night's game against the Utah Jazz. Not very many home regular season games left, but still a handful. Just make sure you guys try and get out there. It's a good time to go out. It's the weekend. The Pacers need to keep racking up these wins, and I'll be in the building for that game. And then I'll be home to record and recap that game for all of you guys. And then Facci and I will be back on Sunday to recap Pacers Nuggets. So thank you all so much for tuning in. We hope you all have a great Friday. And you know how we end this podcast. So Facci, hit me with those 3 words.
Let's go, Pacers.